Hi, it's Mark Owen from Moose Marketing and PR, the editor of Punchline Magazine, and welcome to Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers, where each week I invite a panel of guests to talk about their own individual business, their own individual business sectors, and finally, what's caught their eye on this week's Punchline. I've got a fantastic group, so I'd like to introduce Imam Hassam of Rycroft Mosque. We've got Nigel Tillott, Director of Davies and Partners Solicitors, and Lee Summers, Managing Director of Elmrep. Thanks, guys, for joining us today. All right, anyway, but just quickly go through the papers. Western Daily Press, neighbour charged with murder of dad. That's that terrible story in Tewkesbury. The Citizen newspaper, mum faces being made homeless. The Telegraph, flu deaths may reach 60,000, says experts. The Times, PCR tests of travellers ditched before half term. Great news for the travel industry. Coronavirus report in 2016 warned of the need for tracing and more PPE. That's from The Guardian. Also, we got the front about Newcastle there as well. Then we go to the Daily Express. Soaring prices shop for millions. For some reason, the Daily Mail wasn't arrived at my newsagent today. They phoned up to say they're running 4 hours behind. Anyway, never mind. The Sun newspaper. I don't get this. Adele opens her heart. Are we really interested with all this stuff going on in the world? I'm definitely not. Now for the flu war, says the Mirror. And the Daily Star, my favourite at the moment. What are you running out of today, folks? Knickers down and sausages are up. Anyway, let's get on with the show. Let's start with you today, Lee.
Morning.
What have you picked out for us, mate?
Hey, guess what I'd like to talk about? Adele.
Fair enough. If that's what takes your fancy.
Hey, it does now. No, I was going to say it's been fantastic how she sort of turned her whole life around, realised there was an issue in her marriage, actually went, right, that's it, I'm going to stop this. It's not good for anybody. And then literally cracked on with it. And that sort of mindset to do that, I think we need it as business people, and she's done it in her own life. And I think it's fantastic. And she's also kept herself so far away from all the media and stuff. So to a lot of us, like me, who I don't really follow much music and stuff, that when you do see the difference when you've seen her before and you see her now, there's just a really stark difference. And reading up on it, you can see sort of mentally she is sorted now. And but I mean, I always remember her as just that bubbly character that was just a laugh, and then she opened her voice and it was just like me, common as muck.
I think she's absolutely fantastic artist, and it's good. You are right. It's good to see.
There's a little bit in this section here, and it says, I'll see if I can find it there, and it says she's now on her new man, and it says underneath, it's probably an error. It says it's official. Adele and her new boyfriend Rich. I think that was supposed to be Adele and her new rich boyfriend.
Anyway, okay. What else have you got for us, mate?
I'm just keeping it positive. All right. So we're going with holidays, and the fact that now, if you want to get out, you can go to pretty much all the countries in the UK, in the world, bar 7. So if anyone wants to go anywhere, the only place you can't go now is Colombia, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Haiti, Panama, Peru, and Venezuela's. I wouldn't go there anyway, so I think I'm okay.
I think you're okay there, mate. No, good stuff. Okay, well, Nigel, thanks ever so much for that. Nigel, what have you got for us, please?
Okay, well, I'll start with a bit of serious, so we might have to come back to this. This is all about inflation, and it seems to be a problem across the world, and Europe is getting worried about it as well as us. And I have to say, from personal experience, it does seem to be every business I talk to is having problems at the moment, and supply is a big challenge. So that's a big concern. It's interesting that Europe's having the same concerns. Same page is all about the petrol crisis, and just a measure of what people did, because the credit card spending went up massively in the last couple of weeks. Guess why? Because everyone's buying petrol they didn't need. Absolutely ridiculous. So that's my slightly more serious hobby horse. All the sports, all about black and white. Black and white, black and white, black and white. Now, a couple of things here. I mean, or maybe there's a lot up here. I mean, the Saudi Arabia angle feels a bit uncomfortable, I have to say. Interesting, the Times have got a picture of Bobby Robson at the back of the picture. I thought, well, he was such a gentleman, and there's such a contrast between him and his involvement in the club and what we now have. So I think that's quite a fascinating dynamic. But you probably didn't see, but from a personal perspective, as a Southampton supporter, it's dreadful news, because we're fourth and bottom of the Premier League. Who's below us? Newcastle. Well, that's even one less club that's to keep us up. So that's really bad news. But there's obviously a serious angle. And I just want to finish with a quacking story, which I think was my favourite of the morning. This is all about ducks and how clever they are. You know, you see ducks swimming in a line all the time with the little ducklings behind. Well, some scientists has worked out that this is based on science, that they work out exactly how far they need to space themselves behind the other duck, because they then have the benefit of the flow of the wave from behind, and they basically ride the crest of the wave of the previous duck, and they all space themselves out equidistant. And the theory is that if we could actually get shipping doing the same, we might actually save some fuel. But anyway, I thought that was a great story.
That's a cracking story, that is, mate. I suppose it's a bit like getting behind the lorries, isn't it? Getting that, you know, what's it?
The drag, yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
But fantastic. Thanks ever so much for that. Hassam, thanks ever so much for joining Punchline Talks.
Thank you.
Now, what's going on? What have you picked out for us today, sir?
So a story from the Telegraph newspaper this week. Our Prime Minister Boris Johnson is saying we should make the UK a high-wage country. It's all good and well saying this, but then the question is, do businesses, do they want to increase the minimum wage? Possibly not, because they're looking at profits before everything else. If they bring a higher minimum wage, it's possible that's going to cut down from their profits. And then the other question is, again, in the same story, that if we stop immigration, this will bring higher wages, because migrants are coming and taking jobs for less money. And for them, that's better than nothing. So they're the two question marks with regards to this. And I'd like to know what the other chaps on the panel think about this story.
Okay, Nigel, what do you think?
I've got lots of thoughts around that. It's I've been really quite upset or disturbed by our esteemed leader and what he's been saying. I think it's all about politics, about saying we've got to blame somebody, and at the moment the person to put all the blame on is the businessman, the people that run the business. Well, actually, we need everybody. And if you just sort of say, well, let's blame the businessmen, if the businesses don't invest, you haven't got employment, you haven't got jobs, you haven't got people working. So I think you could take a more joined up and more grown up approach. We've got a perfect storm at the moment. We've got some major problems. And we need to take a longer term view. We can't say we're going to fix everything by blaming business. We've got thought about, yes, sure, we need to actually think about people's pay, and in time we've got to increase conditions, but we've got a lot of other things to think about as well. In the short term, we've got to allow immigration. We've got to allow people to do the jobs that need doing, because the problems we've got in supply chains at the moment are crazy. We can't just say, oh, well, ideally, we're going to do everything ourselves. We need to change the thought processes of people in this country. I think that goes back to Blair, which was all, everyone's got to go to university. I think that was a bad mistake. We should value everybody with all the jobs they do from whatever source and background. So we've got to get the culture changed to actually value all jobs, all professions, all trades. And this is going to take time. So in the meantime, we can't have a dogmatic, or you can't have anybody coming in to do the jobs that need doing. We've actually got to say, let's gradually build this. We've got to actually have a long-term political approach, not a short-term one. So yeah, I've got lots of thoughts on it. I could go on for a long time, but that's it in a nutshell.
It's funny because that leads on to inflation. That leads on to your very first question. As prices are all going up and you know, wages are going up, then who is going to pay for that? Well, we've got to, you know, business people are going to end up paying for it, isn't it? And they've got to put the cost back onto the consumer or back onto their customers.
Well, I think I think what's been forgotten is that businesses have actually gone through a massive problem. Most businesses have got major debts because of COVID and surviving COVID. So you've got massive debt. You've got national insurance rises coming down the tube. You can't hire staff, so you have to pay more money. And if we're not careful, the businesses we're going to have a real problem with the businesses actually not surviving. So we've got to be very balanced and measured in our approach, I think, and we've got to realise everyone's got challenges, look after everybody, and think about it in a grown-up way rather than just blaming somebody, because I don't think that's going to solve anything.
What about yourself, Lee? What's your view on this as well? The Prime Minister's speech. Let's go on to that then. Was it all bluster? Was it all showman? Was it, did it tick the boxes for you?
If I'm totally honest, I was busy last night and I didn't see that one on there. But generally, I mean, we've got a problem in our industry, which I think a lot of industries have, it's like a shortage of semiconductors, which actually has hit our industry really bad. Also, we're trying to buy vehicles at the moment, electric vehicles. We can't even get those through because of a shortage of stuff like that. And if this sort of shortage of people coming in and doing these jobs, or people in this country actually doing the jobs, I can't believe how much of effect it's had across the whole business sector of any business, effectively. But I think there's also, like Nigel says, a bit of a perfect storm at the moment. There may be some sort of a big bubble that's going to burst at some point, but I'd like to think not. And I mean, we're doing okay, so I feel like, well, really well. So I feel like it's all still positive at the moment. But when you do sit back and have a look around, really, and like Nigel said, the other types of businesses that haven't survived as well as we have and are still going, or even have gone already, and it's a worry.
It's a real shame that Steve Gardner-Collins couldn't make it, because he was due to come on the show today, and because he was going to talk about the hospitality trade, and he was talking about a perfect storm as well, and they're going into a very quiet time over the next 6 weeks. They've done very well over the summer. Now for the hospitality trade, this next 6 weeks is going to be really, really difficult, because they don't have the staycations because the weather's bad. They don't have the American tourists or the Chinese tourists or any tourists really coming over at this particular moment. Costs are going up, and to come over here, and the hotels are empty. And on the other side of the foot, he was saying to me that there's 60-70% occupancy rate at the moment. And of course, the big problem they've got is that in the wet trade, you can't get enough people around the bar, because the staff don't want 100 people standing around the bar. So you've got to serve people. That puts up cost. It really is a storm bubbling away there. And that also, when we get to the price of fuel, surely if you're driving around in your vans, Lee, and your staff are driving around, then the cost of petrol's gone up, cost of diesel's gone up. You've got to, in the end, put that onto your general costs. Same as a takeaway, isn't it? If you've got a Chinese takeaway or an Indian takeaway and they're delivering to you, they can't deliver for the same cost. If they're cooking, the price of gas is going to, so everything, it affects everything. See, Hassam, see what you've done? Set the board. Now, I always see you, sir, as the chief executive of the mosque.
Not quite, no. I am an employee at the moment.
Well, you see, you're the main guy, really. Is it a spiritual leader, or because you run the ship, don't you? Don't mind me saying. What do you actually do at the mosque? And let's give an overview.
So we have people from over 30 nationalities who attend the mosque, and Friday is our special day. So we'll have roughly around 1:30 this afternoon. We'll have around 700 people attending the Friday prayer. But what's actually interesting is that the dynamics of those people who attend the mosque. So we'll have surgeons who attend the mosque, we'll have accountants, we'll have takeaway restaurant workers, we have taxi drivers, teachers, cleaners, every profession you can name, we have those people attending. So then obviously working with so many people opens my mind to what goes on in the community. Then obviously my job is to have conversations to understand their situation. And it gives me a good indication as to how they're running their lives at the moment, what they feel about their lives. Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they looking to move on to something else? Do they feel they get opportunities? So it does open my mind to a lot of things that goes on in BAME communities mostly.
It's funny because, we don't really get to meet too many sort of Muslim groups, really, business groups, because you all meet and network there at the mosque, don't you?
That's basically how we network and we go about getting our jobs done. So for example, if we want a gardener to do some work in the garden, we'd probably ask a few guys at the mosque, someone will recommend a gardener and then bring the guy that's cheapest.
Well, that's the same everywhere. But it'd be quite nice, I sometimes think, that we could connect a little bit more, and do more business with each other, or, Is there a need, or there's not a need, or is there not a
There's always a need for networking. That helps and benefits every single person, whether they're in the business sector, whether they're an employer, an employee. It helps everyone find other opportunities that may not be there on a normal day for them. So for most people, it's sitting at home looking for a job, trying to connect with someone online. But when it's face to face, you're meeting actually with people in real life, they can easily point to one direction to say, okay, you know what, visit that person works over there, that person lives over there, they'll be attending the mosque later on this evening, speak to them about it. So in a single day, you could potentially network with 5 to 10 different people if you were attending the mosque. So I've always said to you, Mark, I've invited you plenty of times, come along with a few business people. I'll hopefully invite some other business people and people from other sectors as well, not just business. And we could get together and find out what's going on in our city.
I think that's a great idea. You're right. We have talked about it, and I have taken some business people there in the past. And you also do a lot of education before the pandemic as well, didn't you? You used to have a lot of schools visit.
On average, we host 4 school visits a week to the mosque. And these schools, they visit from all over the southwest. So we've got schools from Gloucestershire, Herefordshire, Worcestershire, and Wiltshire visiting. Obviously, during lockdown, we took no visitors in, for obvious reasons, but we've restarted it again in September. So we're picking up again, 1 school visit a week. Next week, we have 2. And I'm guessing by January, February, hopefully, we'll have 3, 4 visits a week. But it's not just schools. We do invite the private and public sector. So we've had workers from the bank come over and do a special training day aimed at bank staff. We've had people from the fire service, from the hospital, from all different sectors, all different walks of life. We can hold a training day to help them understand its staff and workers and what the needs are of people from within the BAME community. So for example, when I was working with the bank staff, when we held a training day for them, it was explaining to them why Muslims don't deal with interest and the type of accounts we open. And that helps them then give the right advice to its customers. So that's just an example.
I don't understand. What do you mean you don't deal with interest?
So dealing with interest is forbidden in Islam. So meaning lending or borrowing with interest. So we like to, so for example, because of that culture, which we don't prefer, the interest culture, that then encourages us to borrow money from family and friends on no interest. That then obviously saves the person money over a period of time. So that just explaining simple, basic culture such as that.
All right, okay. And how does the mosque get? How do you raise your funds for the mosque? How do you keep it all going? And we don't have very much time today, and I'm sure you and I can get together and we could do our own, half-hour business breakfast brief, big interview. I'd love to do that. But how does it work?
We do have a membership policy. We encourage people to pay a membership, an annual membership, which is a mere 70 to 80 pounds a year. So we've got a good few hundred who pay towards that. And then on top of that, the mosque do have its properties as well, which they rent out. And then we've got evening classes for Muslim children. That then tops up a bit of money. And then I would say the mosque is in a healthy situation at the moment. Even though we've had COVID, it's in a good position at the moment.
Can I be really rude and ask you what sort of a turnover of a mosque would be?
Oh, now we're getting really deep into... I hope you're not going to ask for my national insurance number next, Mark.
You know I would.
Honestly, I wouldn't know. I'd need to speak to the bosses at the mosque to find that.
No worries. You know how cheeky I am. But thanks ever so much for that snapshot, Hassan. We'll come. Let's go back over to Nigel now. Let's talk about your business, Nigel. You've obviously been a solicitor in the city a long time. What's the kind of feeling that's going on in your clients at the moment, the commercial property sector and generally?
Everybody, I think, was really pleased to bounce back and actually be able to get back to business, and it's good to see people returning to the offices. So that's really good, and I think by and large people have been really busy. Say within the legal profession, but outside this year, which has been really good. The issue is, I think there's a lot of uncertainty though in terms of is it going to continue, and there are a lot of challenges. So the challenges about, well, how profitable is it? So lots of people have been working really hard but they've actually got to turn it into a profit. And certainly those businesses that are relying on supplies and costly supplies are finding massive increases and supply shortages. They literally can't get the supplies sometimes. So I'm hearing that some businesses actually, they're having almost not to do the work or delay the work because they can't actually get the supplies, which is a big problem. So there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of concern about how it's all going to arise. But as Lee says, it's actually quite, right now, most businesses I think are quite busy. They've got a lot going on and probably want more resource. They want more resource in terms of supply stuff, but also labour. There aren't enough people with the relevant skills to do the work. So everybody is actually having to work harder. There's pressure on wages, but that's a problem in itself, in that businesses have gone through a bad time, so they haven't got the money. So it is challenging. Commercial property sector is probably holding up better than maybe people have been thinking or saying, and I just wonder whether different parts of the country are finding it different, and I just wonder whether there's been maybe it's more buoyant outside of London, where people are actually thinking, well, actually it is quite good to have offices. And I think there's a big debate at the moment about people returning. To what extent do people return? Do people work partly in the office, partly at home? But I think there is a feeling that amongst businesses generally, that it's good to have teams actually present. Zoom takes you so far, but actually having a meeting takes you that step further. So whilst there'll be flexible working, I think going forward, there will always be the need for people to meet, and people actually move forward better if they can meet. So
it depends whether they're going to meet in their own office or meet in some other hybrid office, isn't it? That's the big question. I mean, Lloyd's, yesterday we ran a story on it. Lloyd's in Bristol going to close their office there, 2,300 staff. We've got obviously Lloyd's down in Barnwood, not a stone's throw away from you, Nigel. What's going to happen there? You know, that's not full at the moment. It's a real question mark, isn't it? They're not trying to get their staff back like a lot of banks.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot. The demand might be for smaller offices, and it might be the people just coming in and out of offices. But then I think still a lot of businesses like to have their own brand identity and would like to have offices. Whether they'll in time be smaller offices, maybe that's where we'll go.
I think it's spot on, which leads me very, very nicely back over to Lee. Lee, I always like to use you as a barometer of what's going on in the office. You know, you sell photocopiers all over the county. You've got to have an office really to have a photocopy. Let's be honest about it. When the pandemic hit, your business fell off a cliff as people moved stuff, wasn't it? We talked about it at the time.
It was I think March 2020 was our last sort of normal revenue stream for usage of people using the printers, which is where we is the majority of our business. And when April came through, it was down by 2/3. Everybody obviously had gone home. No one was getting back to normal as we were. So everyone went home. The turnover went through the floor, but slowly it sort of picked up. But immediately I didn't know until the end of the next month, until it ran the next load of bills at the end of the next month. I didn't know how bad it was. So we've got quite a complex dashboard at our offices that knows when printers are going wrong in advance, and we know before the customer does and all that. But the only thing I didn't know was how much they were being used during this COVID period. So one thing we immediately did was made a system in place. So now at the end of every day, I get a report that tells me how many pages have been printed in that day. And what I've been able to see that slowly increasing. We've gained a lot of customers through lockdown, which has been great, but there are still a lot of our, and I would say bigger customers that still haven't even got back to the office yet. So, I mean, one of our clients is Yankee Candle Europe. Now they would spend probably a couple of £1,000 a month on copies and prints and things like that. The only place that stayed open after March, April, was the warehouse. And the whole, and I'm talking 2 floors of massive modern office setup, was literally empty and has been for best part of coming up, 18 months or so, 2 years. It's just been terrible. I mean, and their usage has dropped to a couple of £100 a month instead of the couple of £1,000 they were doing.
You can see why they're not going to come back though, can't you? Why would they come back if they could save all that much money? And maybe the company's still operating really, really well.
and to be fair, there are a lot of multinational people in there, so lots of different nationalities. So you would have Polish there, you'd have Czech there, you'd have Chinese there, you'd have all sorts there, and obviously they were all in that one building. Whereas actually, could they now work from home? Can they go back? You know, it depends. So I mean, their particular one is a bit specific, but definitely to us, we have seen the bigger companies still not back yet. And like you're saying about Lloyd's round by Nigel, I've got friends that work there, and it's literally sort of 50% capacity. You get to go in half a day, you know, sort of half the time that you normally would, and you book that time between you, so you don't all get in at the same time. But it is coming back, though. I will say, in the general trend, I'm probably 95%, 90 to 95% turnover of copies used each month from where we were in March 2020. So, and I've still got people that haven't come back yet, because we had so many new customers. It's sort of blown it up. What I'm waiting for now is this next couple of weeks, where literally we're going to see towards the end of October, everyone has come back that should have come back. And then hopefully I'm going to see that growth that we've had in between, and then also all those people, the last few people coming back, and then seeing it sort of take another step forward again. And that is the hope.
Fingers crossed. We all need to hold our fingers. I think the whole country needs to cross our fingers, doesn't it? Anyway, thanks ever so much for that great snapshot, mate. Hassan, I'm going to go back over to you. We're going to quickly wrap up. What have you picked out from this week's punchline, please, sir?
So it's an article on holidays. So the travel firm company TUI has revealed that 2.6 million people booked a holiday during July and August. I think for most people I speak to, it's about getting away. They've not really been away since, well, March 2020. So they're desperate. They almost feel like they're 2-3 holidays behind. So they need to play catch up. So many people at the mosque are booking holidays for October half term, for Christmas holidays, for April next year. People are almost booking holidays for next summer, even though we're still 10 months away. And with COVID still precariously positioned, it still says there's a lot of confidence within people to say, you know what, we've been vaccinated, we've had vaccinations, it should be safe, so let's start booking for next year. And then obviously that helps our economy. It boosts our economy when people are booking holidays, then that brings staff, that gives employment, and it's just benefit upon benefit.
Have you managed to get away at all?
I am planning to book a holiday for some time this year, but at the latest April 2022, I do want to go away, hopefully to a country where the weather's warm. But saying that, we've actually had a decent summer this year. Would you agree, lads?
Yeah, definitely.
This is September, certainly.
Didn't you go? I thought you went off to Scotland sometime.
I did go off to Scotland. Do people call that as a holiday? I'm not sure. It's quite local for most people. I did go away to Scotland for a week. I did the NC 500 tour, so that's driving around. If I'm correct, Lee was motorcycling his way around.
Yeah.
So I was driving my way around, and it was Northwest Scotland that's most scenic. So I would encourage people to visit Northwest Scotland, travel down south, and honestly, it's one of the best days I've had in my life, honestly.
Oh, fantastic. Great to hear that as well, Hassan. Nigel, what about you? What have we caught you right in this week's punchline? Please, we're going to have to wrap up quite quickly, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I was interested in the Greg story, actually.
Hello.
About inflation, yeah. I always thought it was Mars that it was actually a measure of inflation, but I just wonder whether it's actually gone from Mars to Greg's, because they're, you know, the archetypal in our high streets everywhere, do everything at pretty good value and very popular, and they're saying that the cost of supply is such they're going to probably have to raise prices, and I thought, well, okay, that's just an indication of what's going on in the world, but perhaps I can link it to the story whereby you can cycle or you will be able to cycle or walk between Cheltenham and Gloucester on a dedicated path, which sounds to be great. So once you've had your Gregs, you can walk, run, or cycle it off by going to Cheltenham. So that's my punchline link.
There you go. Good old positive story there. Lee, what's caught your eye in this week's punch, please?
It was something that I see quite regularly in there, and I was so glad I saw it this week. And that was your little note that you remind us all of where the speed cameras are going to be.
Very, very handy if you run a fleet.
Very, very handy. Yesterday morning, I had to play motorcycle courier to get in and out of Oxford town centre and back here by 10:30, 11 o'clock. I quickly proceeded on the dual carriageway, and then something blinked in my mind. It was like Punchline, speed cameras, and I had to roll off, just get back down to pace, see the police car, the camera van, and just toodle on by at 70 miles an hour. It was lovely. So thank you very much.
Not a problem at all. I sometimes forget myself where they are, and I think, oh my goodness, of course, there it is. It'd be scandalous if I got caught as well when we write all that stuff up. A couple of stories that caught my eye this week. A big shout out actually to Cotswolds Canals Trust. They've won another a couple of awards for that fantastic bridge project they've done on the A38, the A419. This is near Highfields Garden Centre. I don't know if you've been down there. It's well worth having a look. And I just cannot wait when you'll be able to walk all the way from Gloucester and go right across to Stroud and beyond. It'd be absolutely fantastic. So big shout out to that. Those guys did an amazing job, those volunteers. Pro Cook, we had a story about them yesterday. They're expanding, they're cooking on gas, they're really heating up. Their sweet smell of success, rising profits of 36.7 million, pre-tax profit of 10 million. Big congratulations to Daniel O'Neill, our very own business breakfast briefer there as well. Big shout out to him and his crew. And then finally, the new Grove Hub is opening in the Forest of Dean. Today, I'll be over there. Lee, I might see you. Nigel, I might see you. Hassan, you're obviously invited. You could always come along. It'll be the great and the good gathering in the forest at Vantage Point Business Park today as well. So lots going on. The Business Hub has done a fantastic job during COVID and helping the business community grow. Thanks ever so much for my fantastic panel. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining Punchline Talks. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.